Well, with that being said, G, let's talk about Nate Scheelhaase, who it feels like is the now top target for the Browns in their head coaching search. The Browns brass, Haslam, Berry, whoever else is in this interview process, have flown out to LA today to meet with Scheelhaase. Diana Rossini from The Athletic put out that report that they are in Los Angeles meeting with the Rams passing game coordinator today for his second interview, the first in-person interview with Scheelhaase. Guys, do you think if he is their guy, if the Browns have identified Nathan Scheelhaase as the head coaching candidate they want to become the next head coach of this team, do you think they leave LA without signing a contract or at least agreeing to a contract today? Jason, you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, I think if that's the guy, then they probably have a deal by the end of the day. There's no reason not to. If they don't have a deal by the end of the day, I'm not really sure why not. The Steelers were looking at him, but obviously they've made their selection. I don't know that any other teams are really talking to him, right?
The Raiders.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, if you're him, maybe you want to wait and hear Vegas out. If you like that situation better, they got the number one pick. But I tend to think that I think it's within the realm of possibility, within reason, certainly, that there's a deal done by the end of the day.
He's not connected with the Bills or the Cardinals at all, Mike, as far as you've heard?
To my knowledge, no.
Yeah, I mean, listen, of the four remaining jobs, obviously the Bills' job is the best by a whole lot. The Raiders is probably the second best, only because you get the first pick. But I guess if you don't think Fernando Mendoza is any good, then really the other three jobs are pretty equal. You know, the Browns' job, as bad as it is, so is Arizona, and I guess so is the Raiders. If you don't like Mendoza, if you don't think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, I don't know that it's much better. But yeah, I mean, unless it's Sheil House that's holding it up. If this guy, I think we're all kind of assuming he's their top candidate now. I don't know that we know that, but you know, Jason's heard from a lot of people, or at least a couple of people, that he's would be a great choice. We've talked about the fact that the coaching tree of McVay has been excellent. He seems to fit, you know, the kind of things the Browns want to do in terms of, you know, he's being okay with analytics. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, if they don't get it done by the end of today, then either we were wrong that he was clearly their top choice, or he still wants to consider other options. I think either of those things are possible. It's hard to tell in this situation, you know.
G, which way do you lean on that?
Yeah, if I do believe, is this the first candidate that they flew out to see?
No, I mean,
or did everybody
over the weekend?
Oh, they went out to. Okay, so yeah, I think that, you know, Udinski, Schwarz, and Sheil House were the top three candidates. Udinski dropped out of their mix. They've had a second interview with Schwarz. And then Sheil House is the guy that they really waited for. Like, you know, the Rams were still playing. They waited for him. I think he really mixes when you watch some of the stuff. I did a little homework, and obviously not homework meaning like I talked to anybody. I just looked at some of his interviews and some of the stuff that was out available about the way he talks about the game, his personality, his energy. He seems to be a guy that I can see vibing with Andrew Berry, vibing with some of the things. Obviously, you know, as the passing game coordinator, he does come with a set of set of skills and actually an eye for offense. And that's what the Browns are looking for, right? They're looking for a spark offensively. And I think that would be very attractive to Jimmy Haslam. I think it's attracted to the front office in terms of getting somebody who was entrenched in that passing game with the Rams to be able to bring some of that knowledge and some of that expertise to the Browns. Now, if in this circumstance and situation, if he does turn him down and say, hey, I want to take a look at some other places or whatever, then, you know, I look at Jim Schwartz and say, you know, that's the fallback situation. But even if they go back and forth with Sheil House, I do think that they'll still be patient with him in terms of the hire. I think they'll just let him go, talk to some other guys. Hopefully he gets a counter offer to come back. But I do think if I was asked myself, I do think he is probably the number one dude on their board. I think he's moved ahead a little bit of Jim Schwartz in my mind. Not by much, but we'll see what they do when they go talk to him and if they can get him to sign on the dotted line. If we come back today, obviously that was the guy who they wanted.
And one other thing, you know, I first mentioned his name a few weeks ago, and then as this thing started to gain a little bit of traction, I just kind of poked around with one person who knows offense in the NFL and said, like, what do you like about him? And the response was basically, he knows how to both create explosive and consistent gains in the pass game. And LA should have taught him, and by LA, it's McVay, should have taught him how to marry that with the run game. So they just feel like it's a well-balanced offense, and you can create some explosives, can create just consistent, just stay ahead of the sticks, and marry it with the consistent run game. And we'll see. You know, the thing that you concerned with any of these guys, it was my biggest concern with Udinski, and still a huge concern with Sheil House. It goes back to what we've been talking about. What I've been talking about for years is managing some of the fires that come with Berea. It's not about play calling. We want to make it all about play calling, and what you want an offensive genius in there. And I get it. Like, I get it. But the Browns job is different than a lot of other jobs, and it comes with a little bit higher level of nonsense than a lot of other jobs. And being able to manage the day-to-day to that is as big or bigger of a job than anything else. And, you know, I think I mentioned it on Friday's show, but, you know, Mike Pettin sort of told you that it's when you're an assistant coach, it's 90% coaching and 10% everything else. And then when you're the head coach, you get a lot of things that come across your desk and you're like, that's my job. Like, I have to worry about that. Yeah, you do. And in Berea, that just seems to be amplified a little bit more. So is he ready for that at 35 and coming from a pretty stable, structured system with Sean McVay and the Rams? Is he ready to be a fireman? That's the part I have no idea. And we'll get to it a little bit more when we talk about like the stuff that came out of Pelissar over the weekend. I got some thoughts on that, but it's just, what kind of leader is he, and can he manage multiple fires? We have no idea until you're in it.
So watching the Rams-Seahawks game yesterday, knowing the Browns were as interested in Sheil House as they are, you know, I kind of paid a little closer attention to some of the route concepts and just kind of play overall passing designs that offense comes up with. It's impossible to tell how much of that is from McVay's mind, how much is a collaboration between McVay, Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator, Sheil House, the passing game coordinator. It's probably a combo of all the above, with McVay being the overarching, you know, the number one voice in the room. They run some creative stuff, G. There's no doubt about that. And by the way, Seattle does too. And I know Clint Kubiak didn't get an interview in Cleveland. I'm not quite sure what his status is as a head coaching candidate around the league for the other 4 openings. But Seattle had some really creative ways of using Jackson Smith and Jigba, especially on that scissors route when he lined up in the backfield to get him to, with the receiver taking the low curl, draw the defense in to have him slip behind. I hate to say it, but watching that game just confirmed my thoughts of all season. We were watching the Browns play it wasn't the same sport. Like, we were watching a different sport.
That's what happens when you have
different offensive rules. And it obviously helps with the quarterbacks, where Sam Darnold, who played excellent, and Matt Stafford, who played excellent. But if Sheil House can bring some of that creativity to Cleveland, and they can figure out the quarterback situation, whether it turns out to be Shador and/or somebody else, it's a kind of fun style of football I think a lot of people in Cleveland have been craving for a while.
But it's hard to do that when you don't have talent, which they don't.
Well, that's what I said. You got to figure out the quarterback situation.
Yeah, not just the quarterback situation. There's a lot more to figure out. I mean, obviously that's the biggest thing, but there's a lot more to figure out. Those teams that we saw last night are both loaded all over the place. You know, they have good talent everywhere.
You got the
Brown. It's not just the coach. First of all, as you said, that's a lot of steps to take to say, you know, Sheil House is behind an OC and the offensive head coach.
I didn't say that was all him. It's a culmination of 3 offensive minds, though, and the other coordinators or the other position coaches.
Right. But I like the energy. I'm all for bringing it. Like, here's another thing too. You got to have players, but your players got to get better also. You know, the guys that you got in your organization, they have to take steps. The guys that you have, you got to continue to develop. You got to add new pieces and parts to it. You know, it's a whole. It's when people talk about culture, that's the culture. The culture isn't just discipline or holding people accountable. The culture is, are we getting better or are we getting worse? Are we finding guys that fit what we're trying to do? And are those guys consistently striving to get better over a long period of time? And so if you do have guys that, you know, aren't as solid as you would like them? Are they getting better? Is your coaching staff getting them up to speed where now your floor is raising because guys are getting better on your roster? So I like the creativity. I'd be interested in seeing if he is the head coach, how does that affect, a situation where he's not calling plays now? So does that mean we've had issues here with first-time head coaches calling plays? Is he going to call plays? What does it look like for the offensive coordinator? What are we doing with that? Does he get a play caller who is seasoned, or is it a guy that we don't know much of? So I think that goes into the situation as well. If he is the offensive head coach, what is his role going to be in the day-to-day operations?
It's fair to ask. And it seems like if Sheil House is the guy, Jim Schwarz would most likely stay on as the DC. At least that's what the reports kind of indicate. Jason, I see you're nodding your head. Is that what you've heard as well?
I mean, I mentioned this last week, but early on I sort of dismissed the Schwarz stuff and said, I think we're making too much of it. I'm sure they're not actually forcing him on these guys. No, they are. With the young guys in particular, they were. Like it's pretty much known as, if you take this job, Jim's going to be your DC. And you can do that with young guys because they haven't really built out enough relationships to build out their – I mean, who's Grant Udinski going to hire as their DC at 30 years old? And Nate Scheelhaase, who's not been in the league for very long, how many connections does he really have to have a DC he wants to bring with him? So you can kind of push around guys like that. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I think it's a mistake. I think it's wrong. But here we are. So, yeah, I think that they are very much sort of forcing Jim. And I that's the other thing that you've interviewed Jim twice now for the head job. If you don't give it to him and you bring him back as the DC, you have a recipe for
it feels like a power struggle.
You hope it doesn't come to that, but it wouldn't be the first time that's happened in that building. But you hope it doesn't come to that would be the best way that I would say it.
I mean, Schwarz is how old? Schwarz, 59?
Ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
How old
59?
is he? He's around there.
So he's 25 years older than Nate Scheelhaase, if that's the case. I'm looking up his age right now. Schwarz was born in 66. Yes, he turned 60 this year. So he's 25 years older than Nate Scheelhaase. They're both interviewing for the same job. If they end up giving it to Scheelhaase and keeping on Schwarz as the defensive guy, I'm sure he'd have carte blanche to run the defense however he sees fit, however he wants, kind of like it's been,
Yes.
which is how he's been doing it for the last couple of years and had good success here in Cleveland. But it definitely, I feel like, would be a interesting dynamic between a young head coach, first time in that position, and an established former NFL head coach who's one of the best assistants in football, who may not necessarily see eye to eye if it's an arranged marriage.
I don't want to start dooming it before they even. I don't want to call it a doomed marriage before they even make it down the aisle. But I think it's worth at least acknowledging that everything the Browns do is pretty much stupid because their owner is just does stupid things. The only thing I'll say, though, in terms of the Schwarz thing is Nate Scheelhaase doesn't have to take this job. He's going to get an opportunity at some point. So if he takes the job, then it seems like he's good with Schwarz being the DC. He's done a great job. Like Jim's done a great job. So, I mean, if I were Nate Scheelhaase, I wouldn't think I would want to switch it. Again, it's just asinine to force an assistant coach on a head coach, but I think it makes sense for Scheelhaase to want Schwarz. I mean, he's 35. He's never done this before. He's very young. Jim has been in that seat before. If they will work together, there's a lot that Jim could teach him and can show him and can be a sounding board and a resource. I have no idea what the relationship is between them, if any at all, prior to today. So we'll see. Like it could be a good thing. I agree with you. I don't know that it's not that it's a bad thing to keep Jim Schwarz. His defense has been terrific. Right. It's just the idea that this is the way it is, and if you take this job, you have to bring him along. I just don't. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But the Falcons did it with Kevin, and they kept their DC and they wanted to keep him in place. So it's not like this is the first time it's ever happened.
I think sometimes it's about the way you phrase it and about the way you position it and couch it. If you come in and say you got to keep this person no matter what, or you're not getting the job, obviously a lot of people would balk at that and be like, man, you just gonna force me to take this dude and this ain't even, I don't get no say so in it. However, if you're a smart, intelligent individual and you're getting into a position where you know there's going to be a bunch of new things and different pressures coming from everybody, everywhere, you're supposed to look at certain things as, advocates, right? That's why they have you take personality tests, right? I need to know what the personality of Sheil House is, and I need to know what the personality of Jim Schwarz is, so that we understand that, hey, is Jim going to still be able to play nice with a younger guy or a younger coach, even though he didn't get the role? And so I look at it as, if I'm coming in, hey, I already got something that's over there working. They already know. Half of it is like this. If you can get Jim Schwarz to buy in to who you are, and you can do that, then all of a sudden, by default, you got everybody on the defense buying in, because you know why? They trust him. So if you trust me and they trust him, then you don't have to do things where now you have a group that you're bringing in. You might not have the Rolodex in terms of the names you want. You might have to pull some guys from different other places. And now you got a complete rebuild, start over, where you have to establish yourself as an offensive coordinator, establish yourself as a coach. And you're going to need to be doing some things where people can buy in early, like wins and different. Now you got a side of the football. You can concentrate on what you need to concentrate, and that's getting seasoned as a coach and trying to figure out the best way to get this offensive game plan working. And like you said, if they aren't going to make no moves, all his time and energy should be focused on, hey, let's talk about these quarterbacks in this quarterback room and getting somebody up to speed. Let the professionals over there deal with the defense. And I'm going to stay over here because this is what I've been tasked to do with. Now, as we grow, obviously, he'll get more seasoned in other areas and he can be able to take on more responsibilities. But I see it as a positive. I could go to Jim. He could be my advocate. And he could be my voice in the defensive room. I like it.